Good week to one and all. We start our week with some Chassidus. We continue in the Mimer, the Chassidic discourse, trying to understand why in the Torah, why in creation, there's this principle of klal uprat, generality that leads to the details. God could have gotten to the details right away, but he creates the world in general, and then the details. Bereshis is the general term of creation. Then comes, after that, 9 statements. Let there be light, and let there be a separation between the firmaments. And the like. Likewise in Torah. 10 commandments were said one word, and then in 10 statements. 10 commandments were said, and all of the Torah is included in, including the oral Torah of today. Which, of course, the Mimer that we're learning is part of the oral Torah. Part of the oral Torah. So we're going to understand it when we have a metaphor of the influence between a great teacher, like the Rebbe, like Maimonides, right? Like Rashi, and a student. As the sages say in the Talmud, you should always teach a student b'ktsara. Ktsara means concisely. In other words, don't give the depth and the breadth and the length of the teaching. You'll confuse the student when you give all the details. First, give it in its general principle. Give the generality of it. You won't confuse, and through the confusion, you're going to lead someone astray, ultimately, because they won't understand, they won't get it. We see that that's the way the oral tradition is given to us. The Mishnah, written by Judah the Prince, in the first element of the oral Torah that was written down. It was written down in a very concise form. Then a couple centuries later, 2-3 centuries later, we have the Gemara that elaborates on the Mishnah and gives us an extended elongation, if you will, of the Mishnah's teachings. And again, why? Because you need, when you teach, to teach in a concise form, to begin that way. Because if you give all the details, reveal them right away, you're going to confuse the talents of the student in being able to understand and get it. And again, lead a person the wrong way. Not to say that you won't come to the finer details, but the finer details will come out of the general principle in the teachings. Right? Then you'll see how the details flow out of the general principle. So just as it is by the influence, and this is a metaphor, right? So the analog, like it as it is between a great teacher and a student, right? So in others, in the metaphor, sorry, continuing with the metaphor, um, as it is with the way the student needs to be a recipient, right? A vessel to contain the wisdom, the information, the knowledge. Likewise, it is by the teacher. That the teacher, in order to teach properly, has to take all of that knowledge that he has and to be able to bring it into a singular point. That doesn't mean, when we say all the knowledge, you don't mean, here we're talking about, in the point of what you're teaching. Right? Doesn't mean literally all one's knowledge, in this instance at least. So, there's in intelligence, there's two components to intelligence. The external, the internal. The external is the way the teacher is going to inspire, influence the student. It's external because it's the way it will flow outwardly towards another, right? But still within the teacher. And then there is the way it is by the teacher, so to speak, internally independent of the student. That was the way he gets it. Right? The way it's included within, right, now. Even the way it is externally, meaning externally by the teacher, meaning the way he or she, right? But let me say he for the metaphor purposes. For many reasons, but um, even in the external, the awareness, the 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 light of the intelligence is is vast. It's not in a small point until that light is contracted upon. And that's what the teacher has to do. This master teacher has to contract upon his intelligence, in other words, to hide the this powerful understanding within himself that that the way it's now, he brings it into a singular point, a singular idea. And only after that can he actually give it over to the student. Because the teacher, this master teacher, is looking inside of himself and measuring within himself all the finer details of what to leave out, what to include that is in this um, general point, general principle. And the reason why the intelligence by this master teacher has to come into a sort of a singular point right? Remember, we're talking about a master teacher over here. Imagine the Rebbe, imagine Rashi, Maimonides, Moses. If they were to express themselves the way the intelligence is in flowing in their head as they perceive it, it wouldn't match our intelligence. We have a little brain. So how much can you fill that brain? Right? A little cup. They've got huge brain, and it's filled with so much more light of teachings, of wisdom, of knowledge. If they gave that over the way it was to us, it it wouldn't match our capability, right? It would just overflow. There was a chief rabbi of Montreal here, Rabbi Pinchas Hirschbaum, of blessed memory. Um, it was extremely from Europe, and when he lived in from Poland, back in before pre World War II. So every block you had people who know the Talmud by heart. He not only knew it by heart, but they used to take a pin test. Imagine taking this book and taking a pin and putting it through a word. He knew what the words were on the back side of that page and the other pages that it went through. That's how he was able to perceive and see the page. That's knowing a lot. When he used to speak and give over, he couldn't contract on his and bring in his thoughts so well. He gushed. Now, I don't know if I wasn't capable. I'm not here to make that judgment. I just bring that as a when he would give over a teachings. And like it was just too much. He would have to literally, you would have to see how like he'd have to hold himself back, like harness himself to kind of hold back on some of what he was saying. But sometimes he almost couldn't help himself. Actually, because he's not a master teacher. He's brilliant, but he wasn't a master teacher. When he became a chassid of the Rebbe, And he would come to the Fabrengens. Never, had a special connection with him. And he would go out of his box when he would hear the Rebbe, because he's seeing how the Rebbe just so skillfully and simply, um, without any fanfare, is like connecting the entire Talmud in a teachings from one place to another that seemingly, have nothing to do with each other. The Rebbe wove things, and he got it in a way that we wouldn't get it, because, he got it much more. And what he couldn't understand is how the Rebbe was sitting in his chair so calmly and teaching it out in such a way. Like when he gets, sometimes you get an idea and you're just like, oh, when you share it and you're sharing it the way it's in you in its full force. There's a problem there when you're doing it within its full force. It's you excited about the idea, which is amazing. But it's all about you when you're not really being a master teacher, because you're not bringing it down. You're not contracting upon it. You're not making it something that's fitting for the student to be able to appreciate and get it. It's beyond the student. It's too much. Sometimes I would hear him, it would be just like watching the thrill of another person and how their Torah is just like giving them life, and animating them. You get a bit, you get a little here, you get a little there. At least me. Maybe others got more. But he would speak so quickly because the mind was gushing so quickly. So I don't have a mind like him. So it's not gushing in the same way, but every teacher, it's gushing more, that in order to bring it down to the student, right? And again, how he was blown away as the Rebbe is speaking in a manner that is like, whoa, that he gets it, and the Rebbe is calm. Why? Comes from this, because when it's just you gushing, it's you gushing. But when the teacher is a master teacher, then it's not about the information. It's not about the unbelievable idea here that you want to share. It's about the recipient. And when it becomes about the recipient, then you contract on the idea. You think you figure out, what is this student capable of accepting? How big is their brain, their head, their understanding, that they could allow that to enter. They've got a small little cup, right? You've got those, l'chaim cups that are an ounce big. So you give and you figure out how much what is exactly, you concise it, make it fit the cup that's only an ounce. This person has a 3-ounce head. So 3 ounces you can give, but you have to bring it down to the level of what they're capable of. So what's with the other intelligence? Inside of that point, inside of that so-called limited intelligence, so-called, right? Since it's a general principle, inside in there, hidden, are the details. The details are hidden there. And afterwards, they can be drawn out. detail after detail. But the detail then will be, first of all, fitting to the general principle. So you never lose sight of the teachings. You see how it flows. You get the idea, and you get it with all of its finer details ultimately. Powerful. That's the metaphor. What does that mean with God? Tomorrow, we'll learn about that metaphor, a master teacher and a student, of how that plays out. Amazing stuff. All right, we'll see you by Chumash Rashi.